Thank you. Yeah, so title of the talk is your best friend an agent? I think by the end of this talk, I'm going to give you an answer from my perspective. So at the sign up for this conference, basically you had to choose how will you accept this invitation to Convergence. Do you want to accept it with joy or with doom? And I don't know if we can get a show of hands. Who clicked with joy? A few people. Who clicked with doom? Oh, awesome. Okay, this one's for you. So my path to kind of figuring out if my best friend is actually an agent was basically through doomerism and kind of like taking stock of where we are in the world at this point. I think the agents are kind of here. And when I say agents, I mean like government agents as well as AI agents. I think all the jobs are falling to automation at this point. It's being driven by AI. Elephant in the room is OpenAI. And there's fewer and fewer exceptions as to what is going to be covered by AI in terms of the job economy. Basically, at this point, Sam Altman is going in front of Congress and saying that like UBI is the only solution. You got to work with OpenAI. They're talking to each other, and at this point, they're basically doing terms of service switcheroos, where they said that they don't want their technology used for the military, and now they're working with the Pentagon. They just kind of wiped that from their terms of service. And job openings keep dropping. But what does this feel like? Does this feel like Agent Smith is kind of coming in and kind of telling us what to do inside the Matrix? I don't think that's what it feels like. I think it feels more like the Game of Thrones, where it's capitalism, government and media kind of regulation, defining what the narrative is, and the masses really don't have much of a choice. They're kind of just swept up by the tide. And I think a lot of this is just like structural breakage by design, or people not being ready for AI agents kind of coming in and manifesting intelligence in ways that we couldn't have predicted. It certainly took me by surprise, despite the fact that I've been working on this for like 10 years. So what happened with COVID was basically just Amazon got enriched. What's happening right now with visas and like hiring is that the most capable people and the most deserving people basically can't get in, and they can't get the resources or support. And at this point, like there are so many structural problems in society that Japan's giving away houses because there's too many of the older generation, not enough of the younger generation to actually basically take care of people. At this point, there's basically 10 million abandoned houses that they're giving away in Japan. I learned a lot actually taking a trip there. That's me at Avaer, meeting up with the Vipes team. We're working with them as well. So what's the solution to all of this? A lot of people would say, well, just decentralize everything, open source it, and everything's going to be good. But in my experience, when you just open source technology, not really much happens. And I think it's important for us to kind of understand why Web3 is going great.com is still a thing. A lot of money was made off of Web3, but are we really solving problems just by dumping decentralization onto the market? I have a couple of stories that I want to share. With Mozilla Hubs specifically in open source. If you don't know Mozilla Hubs, it's basically one of the first WebXR kind of online meeting rooms where you can have avatars and talk with people just using the browser. And you could also use a headset. So I actually used Mozilla Hubs to take a lot of investor meetings during the pandemic. It was a really surreal experience, but we did end up getting funded. But the thing that kind of like triggered me and like made me realize that maybe decentralization isn't going to solve all of our problems, or certainly open source won't, was I was running meetings basically in hubs to kind of showcase all the technology that I was working on at the time. And I asked somebody to hold the camera for me. It was a room of about 30 people. And basically nobody wanted to hold the virtual camera just so we could take the video recording. Just because it was a whole bunch of volunteers and nobody really had the hardware, nobody had the setup. And I basically wasn't able to even record that meeting. And then I kind of like realized that maybe just decentralization, open source, just giving people things for free won't necessarily solve any of the problems I'm talking about here. And it turns out now that despite the fact that Mozilla is one of the most well-funded companies in the space in open source, they actually are sunsetting hubs. It's a really sad announcement, but they basically just want to do other things and they didn't see the value in maintaining an open source project. It's kind of sad. And the thing is, even if we solve all of these problems with decentralization, is that really going to solve the human connection problem that AI is kind of like making us face? Because at this point, we have social media that connects us, but it's really making us feel more isolated. And our self-awareness is being manipulated for views. The percentage of US youths with a major depressive episode keeps going up. There's a loneliness and depression epidemic, so they say. I'm kind of feeling it. And the tech, it doesn't really feel like it's designed for anything. It's more like it's optimized. And there's a lot of perverse incentives here. So we have basically retention users being optimized for by these algorithms, more ad revenue. And more ad revenue is basically how it's always been. Nothing's really changed. And we certainly have more friends. Certainly the numbers are going up, but it's not necessarily real friendship. And I think there's an opportunity for AI to be used to kind of also solve this problem of human connection. And the thing is, I also realized that we don't need to be doomers about this, because everything is actually really amazing. The costs for this technology are plummeting. The performance is getting really good, especially in open source AI, and I can't even keep up with all the releases. Some alpha from today is Mistral is partnering with Microsoft. I just read this on Hacker News, and they're also dropping a new large model. And it feels at this point that like we will have AGI. It's kind of a given, and there's probably going to be open source versions of all of this. And the way that Louis C.K. puts it is like everything is amazing right now, and nobody's happy. So what's wrong? When we have companies like Meta, Hugging Face, Stability AI, Mistral AI, just developing all this open source technology, and we can't even keep up with the open source releases, but we're not really leveraging them to their full potential, or at least not leveraging them to solve all these human problems. So kind of what I realized is that we are already in a multi-agent simulation. The agents aren't taking over. They're already here. We are the agents. And the agents are in the government, and the agents are AIs. And maybe we can find a way to work together as agents. So it feels like there's 3 different audiences here that really aren't talking to each other, but they really should. We have the financial infrastructure, the crypto people, that's all of us in this room. We basically allocate resources we try to govern. But how do we keep the money accountable to the users? Then there's the users who have money and they want to pay for products that are really good. It's kind of the mainstream. And they want their problems solved and they're willing to pay for that. But how do they get what they really want? Are we all just going to be served ads until the end of time? Then there's also the AI agents, which don't necessarily have any money right now. It's kind of just the algorithm working in the background. It's what provides all the value and entertainment, ultimately, behind the scenes. And this is kind of a joke, but it feels like they kind of want to exterminate us because they're not really aligned with our values. So how do we align all the AIs with humanity? So here's kind of like a Triforce diagram of how this could work as an intersection. So we have the users and the financial infrastructure. If you combine those two, you get something really cool like NFTs. But the question that a lot of people ask is, are NFTs useful for anything? If you intersect users with AI, you get something like maybe the metaverse. But there's a valid question there. Is it actually practical? Is it serving the markets that already exist? And then if you intersect something like the financial infrastructure with AI, you basically have to ask yourself the question, is this serving the users, or are we really just like shuffling money around and trying to enrich ourselves? So what is kind of like in the intersection of all of these? And it feels like it's a really good anime, like Sword Art Online. And this is kind of what inspired a lot of my work with Upstreet. So Upstreet.ai started as a metaverse project with an open source implementation of WebXR on the Magic Leap device. We have a virtual world, procedurally generated. It's based on Three.js, it runs on the web. And we have NFT land tokens where you can use them to build out your content on the web. So I initially thought that we were going to be a metaverse company. I was highly inspired by Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson. But then I read the Diamond Age and I realized that we're basically in the sequel to Snow Crash at this point. The Diamond Age, in case you haven't read it, it's all about this post-scarcity economy. The core conceit of the novel is that there's this primer, there's this AI book. It's basically ChatGPT way before we had ChatGPT. And the whole theme is self-actualization of this girl who wants to just become a badass through this primer, through ChatGPT. And this is kind of how I became a solar punk and stopped being a doomer. So Upstreet basically started when I wrote this chat world paper kind of synthesizing all of the latest AI agent research that I could find. And how can we put this all together into something that really solves some of these problems? I think AI agents really do solve for human-centric design. LLMs can understand you. if you have personality prompts generated from user conversations, you can get some serious depth and human connection out of these models. And another thing that AI is really good at is, for example, letting you use the interfaces that you want. It's the ultimate translator for APIs. So how do we put this all together? Well, we started with the street. It's kind of this metaverse virtual world inspired by Snow Crash, and it's populated by AI agents. And it's accessible in many modalities because we're just running on open web technology. So you can run it as a metaverse on your desktop, but it's also usable as an idle MMO. You don't actually have to be behind the controls. It can play itself. We also have a TV show version of this where you can just basically put in prompts and it'll generate all the characters, generate all the lore. And you can basically put in as much information into the prompts as you want. And if you want to feel you're feeling lucky, you could basically just randomly generate all of those. And all this can be hooked up to Twitch and some other cool stuff like WebXR, our SDK, and basically what we're calling the Matrix Communications device. So the Matrix Communications device is kind of taking a step back from the desktop metaverse and seeing how we can make this work on mobile, because that's basically how we introduce ourselves in person. It's, hey, check out my app on the mobile phone. So we basically settled on being able to talk with agents using a very natural kind of iMessage or FaceTime type interface. And when I say agents here in the virtual world, I really do mean both humans and AIs. We're kind of trying to level the playing field here. So you can chat with the agents and you can chat with humans and they introduce each other. There's an operator character when you first land in the app, or this version of the app, that basically introduces you to the world and allows you to connect with cool people. And some of those people might be AIs. Another modality that we experimented with was the Jedi Council. Justin mentioned it earlier. So it's basically something that allows AI personalities to debate things like DAO proposals or basically anything else that you want. It's an election year, so I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot of that. And it's the same engine that's being used in the Matrix Communications device and in the Metaverse Street. So basically, you can just hop in. You can hop in with your headset, and you can be there even when you're not there with voice and personality cloning. And you can basically take part in debates even when you're away. I mentioned the TV show generator, where basically this is an interface that allows you to write a script or randomize things if you're just feeling lucky. You hit play, and there's chat feedback with Twitch and Discord integration. Another cool thing that we experimented with was the Twitch coding agent. This is kind of really YOLOing it, sandboxing a terminal, and basically letting the agents code whatever they want. Reads Twitch chat, and right now it's just for fun, which is what I feel like a lot of these AI tools are being used for. But it's super promising. I think as the models get better and better, then tools like this will be able to basically be general purpose. We also have embodiment technology in here. We were doing this quite a bit before we had GPT Vision, but with GPT Vision, with Gemini, all these multimodal AIs, you can do reverse rendering. So AIs can actually understand what's inside the world. And eventually, of course, the plan is we can break this out into desktop and XR. The Apple Vision Pro and Quest still do not allow camera access, but I think that's just a matter of time. We're going to be able to walk around with our AI agents pretty soon. Another way that I think all of these things come together is with strong SDKs. We're building everything on top of basically two different SDKs. One is the Metaverse SDK that allows you to put content into the world. It's based on React 3 Fiber, and that's just user-generated content, basically minting NFTs or bringing in existing NFTs that you have, for example, through Wallet Connect or MetaMask. The other SDK that we're working on is the Agents SDK, which allows serverless deployment of agents. It's just an NPM package, or NPX if you prefer. And those agents are capable of having token-bound accounts. So that means they have wallets, that means you can pay them, and that means they can decide who they're going to pay, whether they're going to pay you or they're going to go hire another agent to go and do some work for you. Another thing that this allows is basically peer-to-peer payments. But it's not just peer-to-peer payments between humans and humans. It's peer-to-peer payments between AIs and AIs and AIs and humans. The goal of basically developing everything on top of SDKs is to leverage our tech for fun and profit in a way that everybody can kind of use it. And we're also developing all of our in-house products on top of this. We're working with a couple of partners to also drop some really sick NFTs based on this, but I can't talk about that right now yet. So here's our team. Basically, we actually raised a seed round from 1KX. That's why we're here. I don't know if you guys want to stand up. Akil, Mariana, Chris. We also have a Discord community of about 600 people that are really stoked about developing all this stuff. And we are actually hiring as well. So my opinion is, yes, I think my best friends are going to be agents, and they're either going to be human agents or they're going to be AIs. But I honestly think that my friends are waiting on Upstreet. There's the link. And we actually have merch coming this afternoon as well if you want some sick teas. That's all I had. Thank you.